Class, let me take the attendance first, okay? Otherwise,
Okay,
I will
ma'am.
forget. Huh. Attendance first. What do you have in the next class? Children, what do you have in the next class?
I'm only 1 minute. I'm seeing.
Yes, ma'am, I'm also.
Hmm.
Ma'am, next class is of ma'am English grammar.
Yes, ma'am. Then civics and then Hindi grammar.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Who
Ma'am,
takes
you can take Hindi grammar.
your English grammar?
Ma'am,
Pooja
Ravindra
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you can take.
Ravinder ma'am. But I cannot take that class because I have to go to school at 1. I have to report to school at 1. That is why my class has been shifted to this period, you know. Okay, Aryan Bharadwaj is there.
Yes, ma'am, Aryan.
Prachi Gangwar,
Yes, ma'am, present.
Abhinath is there. Okay, then Hanji. Then Ishan Johari is also there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Pradyunsh.
Ma'am,
Pradyush
Aryan.
Mishra present, ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am,
Aryan Bharadwaj.
Aryan.
Aryan is present. I know. I have marked you present. Then we have Priyansh Agarwal.
Present, ma'am.
Then we have Priyanshi Singh.
I'm present.
Okay, and we have Rakshit Solanki as well in the class.
Present, ma'am.
Hmm. So there are total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Who is left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But it is showing 9. But I am getting only Rakshit. I have marked. Priyanshi, I have marked. Priyansh, I have marked. Pradyunsh, I have marked. Prachi Gangwar, I have marked. Then Ishan Johari, I have marked. Then who else is there? Aryan
Ma'am,
Bharadwaj.
Ma'am Rakshit.
Rakshit
Ma'am
also.
Abhinav.
Abhinath also I have marked. Okay, fine, done now. Okay, see, understanding my when we say marginalization, we are talking about those people who are forced to live on the outskirts, or the those who are forced to live on the margins or on the periphery of the society, in the society. Now this kind of practice, it has been practiced since, you know, ancient time period, where women were not respected, they were not regarded for being women, they were discriminated rather. Then the physically disabled people, those who were there. Then if we talk of, you know, in the world, throughout the world, the position of the women were not very, was not very strong. Then racial discrimination that was practiced in Africa by the Americans, when the Americans had made South Africa their colony long time back. Then there have been people who were denied, you know, the basic rights because of this marginalization. So in the coming topic that we are going to read, we are going to read that what exactly is marginalization. Understanding marginalization, right? So can we have Abhinav doing the reading? Page 290 of the book. Yes, understanding marginalization from the beginning.
As you read in preceding comic strip, window are referred to as a marginalized group. What does it mean to be marginalized? To be marginalized means to push someone to the margin of
Excuse me, ma'am.
periphery of the society.
Yes, beta.
मैम only in 2 minutes I am coming. मैम after that मैम आप बता देंगे कि कहाँ पर रीडिंग चल रही है.
I'll tell.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
To be marginalized means to push someone to the margins or periphery of the society. Marginalization therefore refers to the social process of becoming or being made marginal. In simple words, it means not being accepted by the society at large and being devoid of any meaningful participation in the society. Marginalized people are pushed towards the margins of the society and even denied access to certain basic rights. They are made to be believed that they are unworthy of being a part of the society. The practice of apartheid condition of women across the world till the 20th century, denial of labor rights to the people with disabilities, treatment treatment meted out of aged people are all examples of how people are marginalized. In the context of the Indian society, we find that that for society centuries the rights of some groups of people have been pushed to the periphery and have been denied means or opportunity for participation in the society at large. They form the bulk of the marginalized people in the form of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward classes, OBC minorities, and women. The process of marginalization has kept these people backward and illiterate. Lack of access to representation, resources, and facilities like education, health, and jobs created a situation of marginality for them. When people are marginalized, there is a need for social justice. In the respect, our constitution has played a significant role, which we will discuss in the next chapter. Marginalized communities. The
Okay, wait,
process
wait,
of
wait. Now, see, understanding marginalization. I hope this thing is all clear and understood to you people. Anything that I need to explain in this?
No, ma'am.
All clear and understood. No, in simple words, they have simply told you that how marginalization is practiced in our society, how the aged people, the children, the physically disabled, or the people, those who were considered as scheduled caste or scheduled tribes, they are discriminated by the society. Right? Right? Now, because of this marginalization, these people had to suffer lot of, what do you call, lack of several things in the life. Like they were not having access to education, they were not having access to the basic facilities that were given by the people, and lot many things were there which they had lost their access to, right? And because of this discrimination they had to bear social and economic inequalities, right class?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now carry on. Marginalized communities. Pradyunsh, will you read?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh.
Marginalized communities. The process of marginalization evolves over a period of time. Let us prove how this process created some marginalized section in the Indian society. Scheduled caste. The biggest form of social inequality in India is a caste system. The system has its own origin in the four varnas or social division of ancient times. The social divisions were based on the occupation and was fold comprisation of Brahmins or a priest teacher, the Kshatriyas or a warrior class,
Clans.
the
Warrior
Vaishyas or
class. Warrior class. It is warrior class.
warrior class, the Vaishyas or the merchants, and the Shudras or those engaged in other jobs. Over a period of time, these varnas came to denote castes. The caste gradually became hereditary and gave rise to an inflexible caste system. In this new social arrangement, the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas acquired the status of upper caste. Vaishyas came in the middle, and the Shudras were related to the lower rung of the society. The caste system thus divided the society into upper and lower caste. People were strictly forbidden for
Forbidden.
changing
They were.
their.
They,
Yes, ma'am.
people were strictly forbidden from.
For ma'am, what is meaning of forbidden?
They were not allowed to. They were not allowed to.
Strictly forbidden from changing their caste and right rules came up. As a result, the caste system became a tool for creating social inequality. The upper caste began to exploit the lower caste. The lower caste were denied basic facilities like education, health, and change of profession. They were subjected to all kind of insults and were forced to take up mental jobs. The lower caste were considered as polluting and were treated as untouchables because of the nature of their job. They were not allowed to enter temples along with other castes or participate in social functions or social gathering of the upper caste people. There were other form of discrimination in the form of forcing them to live on the outskirts of the villages, not allowed them to draw drinking water from the village wells, and forbidding them from changing their occupation. Thus, they remain outcast and economically weak. Article 17 of the Indian Constitution abolished and prohibits the practice of untouchability. After independence, it was realized that caste system has created great disparity in the society. Keeping this in the mind, the Constitution abolished untouchability and gave special privilege to the people of lower caste. It recognized this marginalization group as scheduled caste.
Yes. Now, see, in this, when we are talking about the marginalized communities, we are talking about, firstly, we are talking about the scheduled castes. Now, these were the people who were considered as, outcasts because they were into menial jobs. Okay? We have read that how the society setup was done in the ancient times, and as the time passed, how this uh, job based segregation became caste based segregation, and later on it became very rigid, where there was no flexibility. People could not shift their occupation from one occupation to another occupation. In the past, in the during the ancient period, when this caste practices were there, a son of a cobbler was always forced to become a cobbler, whether the person had the abilities to be a doctor or to be in any other profession. But because the father was into a profession where he had to be a cobbler, so he was forced to be a cobbler. A person who was into tilling of land, the child was also forced to do the same. A barber's son was forced to be a barber. So these kind of rigidity which were prevalent in the Vedic period, slowly they became rigid caste practices in the medieval period. And by the end of the medieval, by the beginning of the medieval period, of the modern period, these practices were not appreciated by some of the people, because they felt that these kind of disparity, or this kind of variation or discrimination that is there in the society, it will create lot of, it will create a huge big gap among the haves and the have nots. And because they had no access to the resources that others were using, so they became socially and economically unequal to the other people in the society. So these practices, of course. Yes, Priyanshi.
Ma'am, please tell the page number and what we have read.
291 and done till scheduled class. We need to read a woman next.
Right?
Scheduled tribes.
Scheduled caste we have read, completed.
Okay,
Women,
ma'am.
we will be reading. Okay. Now, after independence, when these practices were there after independence, there were many people who realized that if these practices will continue, it will create a huge, segregation within the society. So just to overcome with the segregation part, just to overcome with the discrimination part, it was it was said that in the constitution, many of the constitution makers, they brought a provision where these scheduled castes, the untouchables were termed as scheduled castes, and under the article 17 of the constitution, this practice of untouchability was completely banned, right? Okay, this is what you have in
Yes,
this.
ma'am.
Right now, coming to the women, we all know that in the Indian society, women were always deprived of all the basic facilities that were there. They were not given access to education. They were not allowed to go out from the houses and work. They were not allowed to even speak in between two men when they were talking. They were not permitted to keep their opinion in anything. So this kind of discrimination was always practiced with the women. Moreover, in if we talk of the world, in world also, many countries did not give equal dues to the women. Do you know, in America, in US, women got the right to vote in 1964. Imagine, 1964, so late. Then in France, it was in 1948, right? So these kind of practices that were there, it was not very it was not appreciable, it was not appreciated, because women, they were the basic, they were the backbones of the families. When they were not given their dues, when they were not shown respect, of course people will also learn the same thing in the families. Generations that came up, they because what practices they had seen in the family, same were followed by them, right? So in this, we are going to read how even women were discriminated, how they had no access to education, how their opinion was not very important when important decisions of the families were taken, and likewise what all discrimination was practiced. So we have Rakshit Solanki in the class.
Yes,
Rakshit,
ma'am.
read. Can you read page
Ma'am,
291?
my throat is not well.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Ankur,
can
are
I
you
read?
there? Wait, Ankur,
Yes, ma'am.
read beta.
Ma'am, women.
Women.
Okay, ma'am. Women who enjoyed equal status as men in the old times became victims of social discrimination.
Ma'am, the
In
voice is
earlier,
very low.
पढ़ो बेटा.
in earlier times, women had participated freely in the political sphere and enjoyed a respectable position in the family and society. But over the centuries, their rights diminished. They were pushed out of the social representation and confined to their households.
House,
Their right to property and
house,
inheritance was taken
house.
away.
Ankur, households.
Households.
Hmm.
Social customs like parda and dowry were created, which undermined the position of women. The birth of a daughter came to be seen as unfavorable event. The women, like the Shudras, were denied access to education and subjected to humiliation. Freedom of choice in matters of marriage or finance was denied to women. In many communities, widow remarriage was not allowed. The widows were considered outcasts who were not allowed to participate in the family or social functions. The continuous denial of right to women, lack of education, and creation of superstitions to reinforce their low social status kept the women in shackles for centuries.
Hmm. I hope this is all clear and understood to all of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything that I want that I need to explain to you?
No, ma'am.
Pakka?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, your pitch is very low.
अब ठीक है?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
fine.
ma'am.
Yes,
Now, Priyansh.
Scheduled tribes. India, in its vast diversity, is home to a number of tribal societies. These tribal people are known as Adivasis, which literally means those who have uninhabited an area since immemorial. In other words, they are the original inhabitants of an area, especially the forested areas. A number of tribes live in the states of Jharkhand, Odisha, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, and in the northeastern states of Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur, Tripura, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, and Assam. These groups of people have their own customs, culture, and are not dictated by the caste system of the mainstream society. In this sense, they are very different. Historically, tribal societies were respected for their in depth knowledge of the forest and its resources and were left alone by the kings and the empires. But this changed during the British rule in India. Forest areas inhabited by the tribals were taken over by the British government for mining or industries, leaving them homeless. The displaced tribes were forced to enter the mainstream society, which did not accept them readily as their customs, language, rituals, and religious beliefs varied greatly from theirs. Lacking education and socially acceptable mannerism, they were considered a misfit in the society and hence were pushed towards the lower end of the social order. They were employed as cheap labor in plantations and construction sites or in local industries. Thus, they came to be socially and economically exploited after independence. The Indian constitution recognized these people as scheduled tribes and made special provisions for them about which you will read in the next chapter.
Okay.
Minor
Wait, Priyansh, wait. Anything in this to be explained?
No,
See,
ma'am.
we all know
No,
that
ma'am.
these tribal people, those who were there, they were considered as different people because they lived in the forest areas. They were the masters of their areas. They knew every they knew about the species of the trees which were beneficial, as which had medicinal values. So that way they were quite learned, right? But when British came, their life was completely destroyed because the forest areas were captured by the British for their own uses, and these people were forced to go for the plantation working. They were forced as they laborers. They had to work. They had to come to the migrate to the plain areas where their life was very difficult. Even in the present times also, if you find these the the people, those who are the forest dwellers, they are the original inhabitants of the forest areas. So whatever was available in forest, they were very much aware of that. They had great knowledge of that. But when they were forced to move out from the forest areas, they had no clue what to do, what not to do. And they were deprived of education because their system was completely different, right? Now again, these people, when they were forced to come out of their respective areas, they had no access to anything. They had to even struggle for their livelihoods also. Otherwise, when they were living in the forest areas, there it was not very difficult for them to arrange for their livelihood, because the forest goods that were available, they used to sell it out to the people who were coming to the forest areas, and they knew how to earn because they used maximum of the forest products for their living, right? But then when they were forced, ultimately they had to fight for their livelihood. So when in plains they migrated, and the kind of exploitation that was done to them by the British during the British rule, when the constitution was made, these people were termed as scheduled tribes, and a due reservation was given to these people also, right? Clear, class?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Very good. Now moving to minorities. Minorities कौन होते हैं? Those people who are numerically less in the number. They are known as minorities. ठीक है? चलो, Priyanshi, read.
Minorities. Minority community refers to a group of people who are numerically less in a country or an area and are therefore vulnerable. The chance of marginalizing such people is very high. The majority, because of its numerical strength, can dominate or deprive these groups of people from accessing basic facilities. In a country like India, where a number of minority communities live, it was felt that there should be adequate provisions in the constitutions to avoid situations of dominance by the majority. The Indian constitution has made provisions to allow different religions to pursue, preserve and protect their culture, language and script. This has been achieved through the cultural and educational right and right to freedom of religion that are enshrined in our constitution. Effects of
Marginalization.
marginalization.
Beta,
The
wait.
process of
Minorities. Wait. Is minorities clear and understood to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do I
Yes,
need to
ma'am.
explain anything here?
No, ma'am.
No,
ठीक है.
ma'am.
बेटा अमूमन जो माइनॉरिटीज हैं आपका जो इनको हम हिंदी में बोलते हैं माइनॉरिटीज को याद नहीं आ रहा हूँ माइनॉरिटीज को हम एक कुछ स्पेसिफिक इसका नाम होता है आई एम नॉट गेटिंग इट राइट नाउ चलो कोई नहीं कोई दिक्कत नहीं है नाउ हमने पढ़ लिया दैट विच ऑल वर कंसिडर्ड एज द मार्जिनलाइज्ड कम्युनिटीज नाउ टॉकिंग अबाउट द इफेक्ट्स ऑफ मार्जिनलाइजेशन यस बेटा
Ma'am, minorities is अल्पसंख्या.
हाँ अल्पसंख्यक वेरी गुड
Yes, ma'am.
थैंक
She's
यू
checked from Google. Ma'am,
ओके
I too.
वेरी गुड अच्छा दिस
Yes,
डिड नॉट क्लिक मी टू चेक इट फ्रॉम द गूगल चलो अब जो हमारे कंट्री में बहुत सारी कम्युनिटीज ऐसी हैं जो कि बहुत कम नंबर में वेरी गुड थैंक यू प्रियांशी तो बहुत जो कि बहुत कम नंबर में है ठीक है उनको हम अल्पसंख्यक बोलते हैं या माइनॉरिटीज बोलते हैं अब इन लोगों के साथ भी सेम वही प्रॉब्लम है विच अदर्स वर फेसिंग एज मार्जिनलाइज्ड कम्युनिटीज इनको भी इनका ड्यूज नहीं दिया गया बिकॉज दे वर लेस इन नंबर्स जैसे हमारे कंट्री में अगर हम बात करते हैं माइनॉरिटीज की तो हम कहते हैं क्रिश्चियंस जो हैं सिख जो हैं ये हमारे माइनॉरिटी ग्रुप्स में आते हैं ठीक है बेटा
yes, ma'am.
फाइन
Yes, ma'am.
नाउ कमिंग टू द इफेक्ट्स ऑफ मार्जिनलाइजेशन ये जो इफेक्ट्स है मार्जिनलाइजेशन के ये बहुत दूरगामी हैं बहुत लॉन्ग उसके हैं क्योंकि जब से इन लोगों के साथ इन मार्जिनलाइज्ड कम्युनिटीज के साथ ये डिस्क्रिमिनेशन प्रैक्टिस हो रहा है तब से दे वर डिप्राइव्ड ऑफ द जनरल फैसिलिटीज दैट वर गिवन टू द अदर पीपल इन द सोसाइटी तो इन द लैक ऑफ दीज फैसिलिटीज क्या हुआ इनके अंदर सोशल इनइक्वालिटी डेवलप हो गई और इकोनॉमिक इनइक्वालिटी भी डेवलप हो गई सोशल इक्वालिटी की जब हम बात करते हैं एजुकेशन का इनको एसेस नहीं था इनके पास चॉइसेस नहीं थी इनके पास हेल्थ केयर फैसिलिटीज नहीं थी रीजन बीइंग इनको वो सब चीजें बिल्कुल इस्तेमाल नहीं करने दी जाती थी जो अदर्स वर यूजिंग being the marginalized communities then economic equality में poverty बहुत ज्यादा थी इन लोगों के बीच में फिर इन लोगों को जो अपॉर्चुनिटीज थी ऑफ द जॉब एंड अदर अपॉर्चुनिटीज दे लैक्ड दीज अपॉर्चुनिटीज and because of this only there were social and economic inequalities among them right clear this
Yes,
last
ma'am.
okay
Yes, ma'am.
now
Yeah.
can we have Ishan doing the reading
Ma'am, I think he is not present.
no Ishan is very much there in the class Ishan wo beta aap chalo Abhinath continue with the reading
I think Priyanshi is too. He is not.
no not responding but it is showing that he's there with mute and video camera off Abhinath read effects of marginalization
Abhinath, page number
Okay.
292.
I know.
okay
Ma'am, may I read?
The process of marginalization brings about social as well as economic inequalities. Social inequality. The social inequality can be seen in these forms. First, education. Centuries of denial to education has resulted in large scale literacy amongst the marginalized sections, which does not help in uplifting their status. Lack of choices. The marginalized people, such as the scheduled caste or Dalits, were denied not only the freedom of choice in their professions but were also barred from dining with barred from dining with or marrying people beyond their own caste. Access to healthcare. Marginalized groups rarely have access to the healthcare system. Poverty literacy makes them vulnerable to serve health problems. As a result, it is found that infant mortality rate, mental illness, malnutrition, and disability is very high amongst these groups.
Ma'am,
Yes, beta.
ma'am, now who will read?
Wait, wait. Okay, anything in this to be explained more?
No, ma'am.
Chalo, Ankur, carry on.
Okay, ma'am.
Hmm.
Economic
Equality.
inequalities. The social inequalities translate into economic inequality, poverty. The low social status of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes subjected them to high poverty,
Hmm.
illiteracy, malnutrition, and landlessness.
Landlessness.
Other malnutrition and other marginalized section of the
Marginalized.
society,
Marginalized.
marginalized sections of the society like women, especially the widows and minorities, also suffered from poverty due to lack of facilities for them, lack of economic opportunity. The, the marginalized sections such as scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and women lacked equal job opportunity due to their low social status. Marginalization threatens not only the physical but also the mental well being of those affected by it, as this group of people face constant dominance by others. Their self esteem is diluted and they consider themselves as inferior to others. To correct them, to correct the wrong done to them, the Indian Constitution took some bold initiative that are discussed in next chapter.
Okay.
Ma'am, what is the meaning of inferior?
Inferior,
Yes, ma'am.
considering low, lower to others, not equal to others. Inferior matlab chota, less
Okay, ma'am.
important, less important, right? Of lower quality, जैसे हम कहते हैं ना बड़ी inferior quality है इसकी, तो inferior means low quality, ठीक है? Right?
Okay, ma'am.
Right. Fine. Uh, Now, with this, we come to an end of the chapter. Only the recapitulation is left. So quickly, Priyanshi will do the recapitulation part for me.
Okay, ma'am. Recap. First point. Marginalization is social exclusion of people. Second, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, women and minorities form the bulk of marginalized groups. Third, the caste system was responsible for marginalization of the scheduled caste. Fourth, the British rule and non-acceptance of the tribal groups into mainstream society resulted in their marginalization. Fifth, marginalization results in social and economic inequalities which can be seen in the form of poverty, illiteracy, access to health services, lack of choices, and economic opportunities.
Fine. With this, we come to an end of the chapter. So, you all will find the answers to these exercises that are there. And after this meeting is over, we are going to have another class, right?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, we can do MCQ in 1 minute.
1 minute we can do MCQs. No, you take your time. No issues. Next class also I have with you. So next period
Ma'am,
also.
English.
I don't know, but next class also I have with you. You will have your English grammar later on.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay?
Ma'am, I want to ask,
Yes, beta, pucho uncle.
ma'am, what will Avinath do prepare a subject for art integration?
He was telling me, I think science he will prepare. He said because अगर मैं SST करूँगा तो I will not be very serious in preparing it. So I told him, ठीक है, you
Okay,
do
ma'am.
any other this thing, right?
Ma'am, I had done the MCQs.
But in our group, Aditya is also doing science.
Beta, you tell Aditya to do social sciences. That will be better.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
हाँ.